I got married too young at the age of 21 and then divorced when I was 23. A few months went by and I started having these nightmares. Long story short, a girl in a white dress with brown hair matted with leaves and dirt walks into my house tracking muddy footprints. She stops and stares at the attic stairs, which are down for some reason. I ask her why she's there. She screams and the whole house crumbles. I never saw her face. I had this nightmare almost every night for 3 months, and when I say every night, I mean probably 95% of the time. For some reason, I started sleeping in the living room as opposed to my bedroom. I just wasn't very comfortable in there. So I'm sleeping on my couch one night, and I wake up around 2 a.m. for no reason. I check my phone, and I see that I have a text from my friend, and I respond. This is important because it verifies that I was awake. I started getting very uncomfortable, and then I heard a knock at my door. I walk around and I peek out the window and there's a girl there. I can't see anything other than her white hoodie, which is up, and long dark hair coming out. She knocks, then knocks again. Not urgently or anything, but she didn't appear intent on leaving, so, stupidly, in retrospect, looking back as a 34-year-old, I cracked open the door. In a quiet voice, she asks if she can use my cell phone. I still can't really see her face because my porch light was out and I've been putting off changing the bulb for no reason at all. I ask if everything's okay. She just repeats, "Can I please use your cell?" Again, against my better judgment, I put my cell phone onto the dial screen and I hand it to her. I see her hit a few things and then put the phone to her ear, and the screen light gave me a better view of her face. She was younger, somewhere between 18 or 22. She was plain, not really particularly distinguishing in any way. She waits for a minute, then says, "Hey, I need help. I need your help." "Yeah, okay." Then hands me the phone again. So I look at my phone and it's still on the dial screen. Something felt weird to me, so I clicked over to the recent calls and she hadn't called anyone. When I looked up, she was gone. Not quite vanished, but like way down the street, farther than anyone should have been able to cover in that time frame, walking away. After that, the nightmares stopped. Potentially related, 2 months later I got a call from a friend late at night, maybe around 10 p.m., who was like, "Hey, did you want to come over for a beer?" I wasn't doing anything, so I did. I got back around 1 a.m., and my house had been broken into, totally trashed, with a bunch of valuables gone. I certainly don't think my friend had anything to do with it, but I do sometimes wonder if that girl was casing my house that night. It's the only correlation I can make between the dream stopping and the real-world explanations from that weird experience. The whole thing was just super weird. I was out for a walk early one morning in a forest preserve. That's usually pretty empty. I start coming around a corner and I can see a car that's parked in the grass just outside the parking lot. I thought, that's strange, but I kept on walking. I'm probably like 50 feet from the car now, and suddenly the trunk pops open. The car alarm starts going off, and the driver's side door opens. I'm coming from the passenger side, and I can't see the driver, but I get a bad feeling about the situation. I still keep walking on the path, and come around when I can see the driver's side of the car. A guy is sitting in the car's driver's seat and starts to wave me over to him. He throws up his hands and says, "I'm not sure what's going on. Could you come help me?" I tell him, nah, he's on his own, without breaking my stride, and I keep moving. He throws his hands up again and turns off the car alarm, gets out, shuts the trunk, and then gets in and drives away. I'm creeped out, so once he's out of sight, I double back and walk the opposite way just to be safe. I walk back probably like the 30 minutes that it takes for me to get to the lot where I parked my car. When I'm getting close, I hear the car alarm going off again. I'm freaked out now, but I didn't want to walk back into the woods again, so I kept on going. When I get there, the same car is parked with its trunk open, car alarm going off, and the driver door open. The guy is already talking to somebody else in the parking lot. When he sees me come into the lot, he looks at me for a minute and then shuts off the car alarm, closes the trunk, and drives away again. I just booked it to my car and called the park rangers, but they didn't believe anything was weird about it. I'm like 90% sure that dude was trying to kidnap someone. I drove an old SUV back in college. After school, I drove home, which is about a 30-minute drive. I was getting dressed at home when a car alarm went off, so I rushed out and discovered that the car door was open with the radio head unit and all speakers gone. I was thinking, wow, this guy works fast. I reported it to the police, and after a couple of weeks, they found the thief and asked me to go to the police station. At the police station, I was asked a few questions, and then the officer told me that I had to hear something that was said by the thief. When I confronted him, he told me that he was able to get into my car at the car park near my school, and I unexpectedly arrived. So he dove and laid flat in the third row of the car. I was driving home with an unknown passenger the whole time. When I arrived home and locked the car, that was the time that he removed the items, and when he opened the door, that's when the alarm triggered. To summarize, I unknowingly drove a thief back to my own house. I'll never forget it. The day after Easter in 1972. We were off from school. To this day, I have no explanation. When I was 15, my older brother and I were hanging out in the yard. Our dad was a very unique person. We lived in a rural area. To our surprise, we both saw Dad walking up the long driveway to our house. This was around 10 in the morning. We wondered what happened, as he'd left for work in his car around 7 that morning. My brother went inside to tell Mum, and we were curious. He was wearing the same clothes that he wore that morning. It was definitely him. There was no way that it could be anyone else, and the closest houses were at least a quarter mile away. I started to walk out to meet him, and as I was maybe 100 feet away, I called out. Next thing I know, he just wasn't there. I thought he somehow fell into the culvert, but nothing. I searched. My brother came and also searched with me. Mum and my sister came out, and we covered the area for maybe half an hour and found nothing. Mum suggested we give Dad a call at work. He answered the phone right away, and Mum, in a light-hearted manner, asked him if he'd been home in the last hour. He worked as a civilian on a military post about 25 miles away. Mum put my brother on the phone, and then me. He denied that he'd been home. We again asked him when he came home, and he seemed to be irked. He insisted that we were mistaken, and that he had no explanation. I remember about 10 years later bringing this up, and he became upset and said that I was playing a mind game on him. I'm the only person in this account who's still alive, and to this day I have no idea what my brother and I experienced, but I know it was my dad. I know he was there, and then he wasn't. In 2011, me and my family were at the Darien Lake in upstate New York on a roller coaster called the Ride of Steel, like as in Superman. On the track, there runs 2 trains with 8 or so cars per train. They sit 2 people across and had lap restraints. I was on train 2, which was at the station. While getting in, I looked out at the coaster and I thought I saw a falling blob just after the second major drop. I shook it off as I wore glasses and my vision is trash. Well, we go around the track and we stop just before the station. We're waiting and waiting and waiting. Me and my family wonder what's happening. We see the car in front of us is still occupied with riders, with an empty wheelchair next to one of the cars. Now it was a packed ride, with long wait lines. Every seat was full except for one, in the car next to the wheelchair. After waiting about 15 minutes, they finally let everyone off but keep the train in the station. After about 15 more minutes, they send the train, we pull into the station. The ride attendants are in shock and don't talk to anyone. Later we talked to some of the waiting guests, who were in line to ride the Ride of Steel. They said a man fell out. I witnessed the death of a guy on a roller coaster and didn't even realize it. One night when I was 15, I stayed over at my buddy's house. His parents were gone and his older brother was looking after us. When we went to bed, the house was quiet and dark. I could barely see his bedroom door open, and I assumed it was my buddy's brother checking in on us, but then I realized that this person looking in on us was wearing glasses, and my friend's brother did not wear glasses. There was no one else in the house, and I couldn't figure out who this person was. I was frozen in fear, just staring at this figure looking in on us, when my buddy, who was in another bed on the other side of the room, started screaming at the top of his lungs. I never heard a more terrifying sound, and my heart just dropped out of my chest. The person looking at us quickly backed out, and the door was closed quietly. After a few seconds later, we saw the light come on in the hallway, and my friend's brother flew open the door asking what was wrong. We both started yelling that someone was in the house. My brother grabbed a baseball bat from his room and started searching the house. We checked the front and back doors of the garage, and they were all locked. The windows were closed. He looked in every closet and under the beds. Needless to say, we spent the rest of the night in his room. None of us could sleep, so we all stayed up all night talking. It was one of the most terrifying, but also one of the best nights of my life. When I was about 15, I spent a lot of time just walking around the downtown area with my friends. Largely, this was a very uneventful pastime, as we were in a small New England city. This one time, though, things got a little weird. It was mid-afternoon, and I was with two other friends of the same age, another girl and a boy. I read a lot of spy books as a kid, and I had it in my head that I could be some sort of secret agent, so I always had my head on swivel when I'd be out to make sure that I wasn't being tailed. As you can imagine, it was rarely an issue for me, seeing as I was not an undercover secret agent, except for the day when it came in handy. I had noticed a while earlier an older white gentleman carrying a massive black sports duffel bag, and it stuck in my head because of how strange he looked. He was dressed in a relatively nice business casual, and then had this huge bag slung over his shoulder that looked full. He was walking towards us on the other side of the street when I first saw him. Then a few blocks later I turned, and I saw him behind us on our side of the street. He was still walking, and following at about a block's distance behind. I mentioned to my friends, "Hey, you see that guy? Kind of feels like he's following us." And they agreed that the vibe was weird. So we started testing him. We went on this crazy route all over that part of town, walking for like half an hour. We were backtracking, zigzagging, crossing the street back and forth, and the guy was copying our every move from a block behind. Eventually, we found ourselves across from the library, and at that point we were feeling pretty spooked. We ran inside and hid in the magazine section because the way that the stacks were set up, you could see the front door while being concealed from view. We weren't sure if we were being dramatic and imagining if the guy was following us. I mean, maybe he was also walking an erratic route around town and had no end goal. But when we saw him walk in through the door, all doubt was gone. He came in, poked around the entrance area, clearly could not see us, and then left. We just about peed ourselves. We waited a long time before we left in case he was outside, and we hightailed it to my friend's house after that.